Chapter 384. Fang Qixiao is very famous in Jianghu. He is ranked 3rd on the Longhu list and is known as a sword Dao genius rarely seen in a millennium. He started learning the sword at the age of 7 and learned all 4 major sword halls of Sword King City in 5 years. Even the sword instructors of Sword King City are ashamed of their inferiority. Chu Xiu also has a lot of enmity with Sword King City. Sword King City's outstanding disciple Lin Kaiyun, second only to Fang Qixiao, had his state of mind damaged because of him. Moreover, Sword King City's elite disciple Brilliant Sword Fei Mo also had his cultivation crippled. Therefore, Chu Xiu wasn't surprised that Sword King City came looking for trouble with him. Just when Chu Xiu thought that Fang Qixiao would issue a challenge in a domineering manner, Fang Qixiao showed a helpless expression and said, "You should know why I came looking for you. In fact, I don't want to. I'm actually very lazy. Aside from practicing the sword, I don't want to do anything else. Lin Kaiyun has always been envious of my handsomeness, elegance, majesty, and unbridled nature. In Sword King City, he always spoke ill of me. He's very stingy, so I don't want to take revenge for him. There's also Firmer. That guy is famous for having a foul mouth and giving himself such an unlucky name. I've already said it before. Who knows, maybe one day someone will find him an eyesore and conveniently cripple him. Now it seems that I have the potential to become a divination grandmaster. Right, what do you think about me going to Longhu Mountain to learn divination from those ox noses? I'm very familiar with Zhangchengzhen. Seeing that we're so familiar, Celestial Master Mansion shouldn't refuse me, right? I'm sorry, I digressed. What I meant was that although I'm too lazy to avenge them, the people of my sect are forcing me to seek justice for that idiot. After all, I'm the most handsome disciple of this generation in Sword King City, so I have no choice but to shoulder this heavy burden. But I don't want to fight this kind of meaningless battle. How about this, later on in the arena, I will use my sword 3 times and you will use your saber 3 times. Then, you will pretend to be no match for me and we will both save our strength. What do you think? After all, you're ranked 6th on the Longhu leaderboard and I'm ranked 3rd. This proves that in terms of handsomeness, I'm better than you. It's not embarrassing for you to lose to me. I'll treat you to a meal after this. What do you think? Fang Qixiao's mouth was even faster than his sword. After he finished speaking, both Chu Xiu and Xia Xiaolu were dumbstruck. Who would have thought, that the world-famous chief sword master Fang Qixiao, who was known as the rare genius swordsman in 1,000 years, Fang Qixiao, was actually a chatterbox and a joker. Xia Xiaolu was even more speechless. Fang Qixiao nodded listlessly. When the martial artist saw Fang Qixiao's appearance, he couldn't help getting angry and shouted again, "Speak!" 7th young master Fang pointed at his mouth and said with an aggrieved expression, "Didn't you say you wouldn't let me speak? If I speak, you'll go to master and complain about me. I don't want to be grounded." The martial artist covered his face and sat down. He waved his hand dispiritedly and didn't want to talk to Fang Qixiao anymore. On Chu Xiu's side, Xia Xiaolu still couldn't react. Fang Qixiao, who was ranked 3rd on the Longhu list, turned out to be like this. This completely subverted his imagination. At this moment, a deafening clang of a sword rang out in the middle of the training grounds. It shook the heavens and the earth, immediately causing the noise to stop. The ordinary-looking martial arts grandmaster from the sword hut walked onto the training grounds in the middle of the training grounds. He cupped his hands at the people around him and said loudly, "Welcome to the World Sword Sect Conference, everyone. If there is anything lacking in the hospitality, please forgive me." Seeing this ordinary-looking middle-aged martial artist stand out, there was another round of discussion below. This extremely ordinary-looking middle-aged martial artist's identity was not simple. He was the martial arts grandmaster of the Sword Hut, ranked 29th on the honor list, Kongming Sword, Han Tingyi. There were not many people in the Sword Hut. There were actually less than 3,000 inner sect disciples, and the rest were outer sect disciples who did odd jobs. Even so, there were less than 10,000 people. Thus, Han Tingyi did not have any position in the sword hut. He was simply a martial arts grandmaster, responsible for teaching some disciples and handling some miscellaneous items. The martial artists of the sword hut cultivated the way of the sword. They comprehended sword intent, understood sword theory, and practiced sword techniques. They progressed step by step and had an incomparably solid foundation. But at the same time, this also meant that the martial artists of the sword hut spent most of their time cultivating in seclusion, keeping a very low profile. This was the case for Han Tingyi. In his early years, he had not even been on the Longhu list. By the time he left, he was already over 40 years old, only a step away from entering the realm of martial arts grandmasters. But when Han Tingyi stepped into the martial arts world for the first time, he shocked everyone with a single brilliant feat. This was because a disciple of the sword hut was killed by the Ghost King's sect and dismembered to refine pills. Han Tingyi was ordered to avenge him. He hunted down an entire branch of the Ghost King's sect, over 200 people, and killed over 10 Unity of Heaven realm martial artists. He brought back the remains of the sword hut disciple. After stepping into the martial arts grandmaster realm, Han Tingyi had consecutively defeated 2 of the 4 major sword hall masters of Sword King City. His might was boundless. This seemingly ordinary middle-aged man's strength was very extraordinary. Sending Han Tingyi to host the World Sword Sect Conference was already very important. In the past, when there were not so many people, the hosts were all Unity of Heaven realm martial artists. Han Tingyi said in a deep voice, "The World Sword Sect Conference is a grand event of my sword lineage. Since ancient times, the sword has been the leader of all weapons. Now that my sword lineage is prosperous, we can host the World Sword Sect Conference. Everyone can exchange pointers and make my sword lineage even more glorious." Han Tingyi's words made some of the martial artists present who did not use swords feel a little uncomfortable. What did he mean by the sword was the leader of all weapons? Did he mean that those who used other weapons were inferior? However, although these people felt a little indignant, they had to admit a fact. In the current martial arts world, martial artists who cultivated the sword indeed had the advantage and the majority. For example, there were 5 major sword sects in the martial arts world, but there were no 5 major saber sections. The other martial artists who used spears, rods, and other strange weapons were even more of a minority. Han Tingyi continued, "This time, there are so many martial artists participating in the World Sword Sect Conference. As for the rules, they naturally have to change. The conference is divided into 3 rounds. The first round is a spar between the younger generation martial artists. In the martial arts world, a single tree does not make a forest. The younger generation martial artists represent the future. It is the future of the martial arts world. Therefore, this round is arranged at the very front. The second round is a spar between martial arts grandmasters. Martial arts itself is the way of fighting and killing. Without fighting, it is impossible to talk on paper. Even martial arts grandmasters cannot work behind closed doors. In the first 2 rounds, be it sword cultivators or martial artists from other sects present, everyone can participate. As for the last round, it will be a discussion of the sword. Our 5 great sword sects will each send a grandmaster to explain the sword Dao. If there are any mistakes or inaccuracies, please point them out and correct them." When Han Tingyi finished speaking, the ones who were the most excited were the martial artists who were rogue cultivators. They did not come to the World Sword Sect Conference with the intention of entering the arena. That kind of place was not something they could go to. These people came for the last round, where those martial arts grandmasters would explain the Tao. The World Sword Sect Conference was a rare event that happened once in 100 years. It was their honor to be able to encounter it. After all, it was a martial arts grandmaster explaining the Tao. Normally, they would not have such an opportunity. At this moment, Han Tingyi's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. He said, "Since it is an arena competition, there must be a prize. Our 5 major sword sects have also come up with a few prizes this time. We are prepared to give it to the winner of the younger generation and the martial arts grandmasters from the 5 major sword sections." As he spoke, Han Tingyi waved his hand and immediately, a few things were carried up. Chapter 385. The 5 great sword sects could be said to have put in a lot of effort for this World Sword Sect Conference. They had taken out a lot of good things. The rewards that were brought up were covered with red cloth. Han Tingyi lifted the first red cloth. Inside was a sword, a secret box, and a bottle of pills. Han Tingyi pointed to the sword whose hilt was black but whose blade was scarlet red, and said in a deep voice, "This sword is a top-grade 6 precious weapon, Scarlet Demon, ranked 65th in the world-famous sword manual. In the past, it was the personal weapon of a devil envoy of the Kunlun devil cult. Now, it has been cleansed of its demonic qi, it still retains its fiendish blood aura, its power has not decreased much, it is still sharp. In the younger generation's arena competition, the first prize is this Scarlet Demon sword." Han Tingyi pointed to the secret box and said, "This is a secret box that my forgotten sword hut obtained after attacking the Kunlun devil cult. It was found in the Kunlun devil cult's martial arts library. Inside is a set of demonic path martial arts great devil blood technique and blood transformation divine blade. The combination of the two is at the 7th rank. But the people who came to participate in the World Sword Sect Conference are all righteous path people, so my forgotten sword hut temporarily sealed the incomparably evil great devil blood technique. Inside is only the blood transformation divine blade. It can be used as a trump card at a critical moment. It is the prize for the 2nd place. The last bottle of pills contains the Kunlun devil cult's secret pill, Withered Would Give Spring Pill. It is refined from the Kunlun devil cult's rootless sacred flame. It is a holy healing medicine. It is the prize for the 3rd place." After Han Tingyi finished introducing these things, Chu Xiu did not feel anything, but he knew that Mr. Liu and the other Kunlun devil cult martial artists hiding in the dark probably wanted to swallow Han Tingyi alive. Han Tingyi or the entire 5 great sword sects were simply provoking the people of the hidden devil cult. The top 3 prizes they took out were all seized from the hands of the Kunlun devil cult in the past. In other words, these were all spoils of war, but they were the shame of the Kunlun devil cult. Now, they took out these things as rewards. If this wasn't provocation, then what was? However, Mr. Liu and the others naturally wouldn't act up now, because the bigger provocation was yet to come. The expression on Han Tingyi's face did not change. He pointed at the last item wrapped in red cloth and said in a deep voice, "Martial Dao masters don't care about these small things, so we only prepared one reward for the winner. That is the symbol of the Kunlun devil cult in the past, which is also the symbol of the orthodox demonic path, the demonic creation flag." As soon as Han Ting lifted the red cloth, a powerful demonic aura instantly soared into the sky. It was so terrifying that it seemed to cover the sky and cover the sun. There should be a formation set up on the red cloth. Otherwise, it would be impossible to suppress such a powerful aura. Everyone focused their eyes and saw that under the red cloth was a tattered flag. As Han Ting raised the flag, everyone could clearly see the true appearance of the flag. The flag was only about 30 feet tall, and the flagpole was pitch black in color. There were sword scars on it, and it looked incomparably ancient. While the body of the flag could still flutter in the wind, it was extremely damaged as though it could shatter at any moment. Originally, the body of the flag should have been pitch black in color, with all kinds of mysterious seal scripts and diagrams drawn on it with golden patterns. But now, not a single complete seal could be seen. Everyone present had strange expressions. This was the symbol of the former demonic path, the demonic creation flag that represented the orthodox demonic path. The martial Dao grandmasters from the large sects all knew what the 5 great sword sects meant this time. Seeing that they really took out the demonic creation flag, the 5 great sword sects were really determined to suppress the demonic path. The other wandering cultivators stared with all their might. This was the demonic creation flag that represented the former Kunlun devil cult. It was a legendary existence. If they took a few more glances, they would have something to brag about in the future. As for sects like the Ba Mountain Sword sect, they were unperturbed and did not move at all. The demonic creation flag was of no use to them at all. Instead, it was a hot potato. They would not want it even if it was given to them. In the present world, only existences like the 5 great sword sects or the Buddhist and Daoist sects could keep the demonic creation flag. If it was left in the hands of others, they would be attacked by a large group of demonic cultivators the next day and torn to pieces. Because the arena in the center of the practice field was very large, it was divided into 10 parts by the people of the sword hut. It could accommodate 10 groups of people to compete at the same time. In the sword sect conference of the world, the arena competition was just an accessory, especially since the 5 great sword sects had held this sword sect conference with a different goal this time. So the rules were not so strict. Anyone who wanted to go on stage could sign up and start competing at will. They could also challenge each other. But after each round of challenge, the challenged person had the right to rest for a round and recover their strength. This could prevent people from taking turns to fight and deliberately tricking one person. The last rule was newly set by the Sword Sect Conference of the World. In the past, this kind of thing would not happen because the people who participated were warriors from the 5 great sword sects. For them, if anyone dared to play such underhanded tricks in the arena, they would lose their reputation. But this time, there were many outsiders participating in the Sword Sect Conference of the World. It was somewhat out of control, so the 5 great sword sects could only add some new rules to control it. Xia Xiaolu stood beside Chu Xiu and asked, "Brother Chu, are you going to participate in the arena?" Among the other sects, those who represented their sects to participate in the Sword Sect Conference of the World were definitely warriors at the unity of the world realm. The core strength of the sects were almost all not young, so they naturally could not go on stage to compete. But Chu Xiu was an exception. He came to represent the Guanzhong torture room, but his age was that of a warrior of the younger generation, so he naturally had the right to go on stage. Chu Xiu nodded and said, "Why wouldn't I want the benefits that are delivered to my doorstep? I can also train my own strength at the same time." "Brother Chu, you use a saber. You also have your eyes on the Scarlet Demon Sword?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "Of course not. I only want the blood-dissipating saber. I don't have any extravagant hopes of being number 1. You have also seen that fellow Fang Qi Shao. Although he is a little unreliable, his cultivation in the way of the sword can be said to be terrifying. Furthermore, Fang Qi Shao has already stepped into the unity of the world realm. Although I have killed more than 1 or 2 warriors of this realm, compared to Fang Qi Shao, the difference between these people is simply like the difference between clouds and mud. If we don't fight to the death, the current me is not sure that I can beat Fang Qi Shao. But to be a little arrogant, besides Fang Qi Shao, among the younger generation of warriors here, who is qualified to fight with me?" Xia Xiaolu thought about it and it really made sense. If Chu Xiu wanted to fight for first place, it might be a little difficult to fight with Fang Qi Shao, but if he wanted to fight for second place, it would be even easier than Fang Qi Shao fighting for first place, because no one dared to fight with Chu Xiu. The arenas in all directions opened at the same time, and those who wanted to participate in the arena or challenge could directly enter the arena to start the competition. The 5 martial Dao Grand Masters of the 5 major sword sects stood on the high ground. On the surface, they were protecting the warriors who participated in the arena, but they were secretly monitoring to see if those demonic rats would secretly attack them. On the arena of the martial arts field, the 10 groups of people were fighting in full swing. They had been changed back and forth several times, but those who could still stay in the arena were almost all famous heroes of the younger generation. After Chu Xiu entered the arena, he went through 3 rounds. In fact, In these 3 rounds, Chu Xiu did not even fight. The people in those 3 rounds happened to be people of Eastern Qi. After knowing the identity of Chu Xiu, they directly turned around and fled. In the land of Eastern Qi, Chu Xiu was quite famous. Basically, there were only 2 outcomes for those who had anything to do with Chu Xiu. One was to die, and the other was to live a life worse than death. In the arena, Chu Xiu was relatively dazzling. Almost all of his opponents were defeated without a fight. This made the warriors of West Chu and Northern Yan feel a little strange. Weren't the warriors of Eastern Qi a little too cowardly? They didn't even fight and they withdrew? It should be known that this was the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference. Everyone came with the intention of learning from each other. Generally, they would not fight to the death. Fighting was just to hone their own strength. What were they afraid of? In fact, the warriors of Eastern Qi were indeed a little frightened by Chu Xiu's behavior. Those who went against him were basically dead or crippled. Although they also knew that this was the World Sword Sect Conference and Chu Xiu did not dare to go too far, no one was willing to guarantee it with their lives. Looking at the other young martial artists who were on the Dragon and Tiger list, they seemed to be fighting quite well. Although the 7th young Master Fong was somewhat unreliable, he was not ruthless in his attacks. Almost none of the warriors who had fought with him had been able to withstand more than 3 strikes from him. However, at the same time, his opponents had also benefited greatly. When the others saw that Fang Qishao did not kill them, they all gathered at Fang Qishao's side, wanting to take the opportunity to fight with him to learn a few moves. Later, Fang Qishao also felt annoyed. He directly erupted with his strongest strength and defeated his opponent with 1 move. It was simple and easy, so the other warriors could not see anything. Only then did the disappointed crowd change their direction. In addition to Fang Qishao, Nie Dongliu's performance was also very exciting. Nie Donglu had already practiced the Nie family's Heaven and Earth Cloud hand to an extremely proficient level. Later, he followed Han Baxian to practice fist martial arts. His strength was even better than before. There were few warriors who could withstand more than 3 moves from him. However, Fang Qishao could not be bothered to give pointers to the warriors who fought with him. On the other hand, Nie Donglu patiently gave pointers to every warrior who fought with him and lost to him, earning him a good reputation. In addition to Chu Xiu and the others, Yunu Palace's Yan Fian, Xie Xiaolu and the others on the arena also performed very well. As long as one was on the Longhu list, when facing ordinary warriors of the same level, they had a huge advantage. But now, when some people saw Chu Xiu's glorious appearance, they felt extremely unbalanced. Chapter 386. Looking at Chu Xiu's prowess in the arena, the one who was mentally unbalanced was Xiahou Wujiang. This time, he also followed his father, Xiahou Zhen, to participate in the World Sword Sect Conference. Xiahou Zhen brought Xiahou Wujiang here to let him see the world and increase his seniority. According to Xiahou Zhen, in the future, the Xiahou clan would definitely be handed over to Xiahou Wujiang, and their branch must be reappointed as the family head. The death of 7th uncle last time was a huge blow to Xiahou Wujiang, even more than when Chan was killed by Chu Xiu. Chan was just a maid of Xiahou Wujiang. To put it bluntly, she was just one of his many women. Now that one of them died, Xiahou Wujiang didn't feel any pain, only anger. But 7th uncle was an elder who watched him grow up, and was also one of Xiahou Zhen's confidants. Now that he died because of him, this blow was extraordinarily heavy for Xiahou Wujiang. Therefore, since the last time, Xiahou Wujiang changed his habits and became somewhat taciturn. He actually took the initiative to ask for no hardship cultivation, which made Xiahou Zhen feel somewhat gratified. At least his son could still be saved. Because Chu Xiu was between the Northern Yan and West Chu people, he didn't see anyone from Eastern Qi's side, so Xiahou Wujiang and Chu Xiu didn't meet. But at this time, Xiahou Wujiang saw that Chu Xiu was so glorious on the arena, almost subduing the enemy without a fight, which made Xiahou Wujiang feel extremely unbalanced. Xiahou Zhen felt that Xiahou Wujiang was strange, and he said indifferently, "What? Not convinced? The people of Jianghu can take and let go. Chu Xiu has the strength, so he has the qualifications to be glorious now. Don't forget what old Seven told you before, don't provoke Chu Xiu without absolute certainty. Now is not the time to touch Chu Xiu. The strength of the Guanzhong torture room isn't weak, but it has been hiding and keeping a low profile all these years, so it hasn't been noticed by others. The last time I lost to Guan Siyu, it was my miscalculation. Guan Siyu is even about to break through to the true fire soul refinement realm. With the protection of the Guanzhong torture room, unless I could seize the power of the Xiahou family and completely control it, I wouldn't be able to suppress the Guanzhong torture room with my current power. I'm still going to say the same thing. You can take it easy and let it go. There's no rush to take revenge now. You have to look forward and not be obsessed with this little grudge." Xiahou Wujiang looked coldly at Chu Xiu in the arena, nodded, and said, "I know, father. I won't go into the arena this time." Although Xiahou Wujiang deeply hated Chu Xiu, he also knew his own capabilities. At this time, he didn't have the confidence to challenge Chu Xiu in the arena, and he also didn't have the confidence to face Yan Fian of the Yunu Palace. It could only be said that he had a 50-50 chance. There was also that Nie Donglu. Although most people in the Jianghu knew that Nie Donglu was a scheming person, and his methods were more famous than his strength, Nie Donglu had been in seclusion for 2 years, and he had even become the disciple of the northern Yan Jianghu's tyrant, Han Baxian. Xiahou Wujiang also didn't have the confidence to defeat him. As for facing Fang Qishao, he didn't even have the confidence to block 3 of Fang Qishao's swords. The 2 of them weren't existences of the same realm and level at all. The arena competition of the World Sword Sect Conference was just a spar. Although it wasn't that serious, there were still so many people watching. With Xiahou Wujiang's status, if he didn't have the confidence to enter the top 3, then he should forget it. He would only be humiliating himself if he went up. However, Xiahou Wujiang wasn't willing to just watch Chu Xiu continue to show off here. He coldly snorted, stood up, and walked towards the northern Yan side. Xiahou Zhen frowned and said, "What are you going to do? Didn't you hear what I said just now?" Xiahou Wujiang said in a deep voice, "Father, don't worry. I won't go up to the arena to compete with Chu Xiu. It's just that I don't want Chu Xiu to win too easily. I believe that many people will be happy to see this happen." Hearing Xiahou Wujiang say this, Xiahou Zhen thought about it and didn't continue to say anything. He only hoped that Xiahou Wujiang could be more steady. However, if he was too steady, steadiness would become timidity. This wasn't a good thing, so Xiahou Zhen didn't stop him. Xiahou Wujiang walked straight to the northern Yan side and arrived in front of the monks from the Great Light Temple. With a smile on his face, he cupped his hands and said, "Xiahou Wujiang greets the masters." Su Yan glanced at Xiahou Wujiang, put his palms together, and returned the greeting. "So it's the young master of the Xiahou clan. You're too polite." The Great Light Temple was far away in the northern Yan, while the Xiahou clan was in eastern Qi. The 2 sides actually didn't have much contact. However, the Xiahou clan was one of the 9 great families, and it was the kind that ranked at the top. Su Yan would still give Xiahou Wujiang face. "I wonder what young Master Xiahou is here for?" Su Yan asked directly. He was a martial arts grandmaster level powerhouse, the Vajra institution's master. He naturally wasn't willing to play any tricks with a junior martial artist like Xiahou Wujiang. It would be more appropriate if it was Xiahou Zhen instead. Xiahou Wujiang pointed at Chu Xiu on the arena and said in a clear voice, "Masters, back in the sky-reaching tower, when Chu Xiu tortured and killed your temple's great master Ming Chen, I was also present. Chu Xiu's attack was ruthless and decisive. Although I didn't have any friendship with Great Master Ming Chen, I still admired the reputation of the Great Light Temple's masters. I wanted to stop him, but it was too late, and Great Master Ming Chen was killed. During the sky-reaching tower battle, an elder who had taken care of me since I was young also died at the hands of Chu Xiu. However, I deeply hate myself for being useless and not being able to avenge my seventh uncle. Even if my father made a move, he was defeated by Guan Siyu of the Guanzhong torture room. This time, the masters have brought so many masters to the World Sword Sect Conference. I believe that Great Master Ming Chen definitely won't die in vain. The masters will definitely not let Chu Xiu continue to be so arrogant. As soon as Xiahou Wujiang said this, the Great Light Temple's martial artists immediately became excited. Moreover, Xiahou Wujiang's voice was not soft. The surrounding people also heard Xiahou Wujiang's words and looked at the people from the Great Light Temple. Looking at Xiahou Wujiang, Su Yan's expression immediately became gloomy. He never thought that this junior from the Xiahou clan would dare to provoke the Great Light Temple. Originally, the Great Light Temple was not prepared to make a move at the World Sword Sect Conference. However, with Xiahou Wujiang's provocation, the disciples who had previously quietened down became excited again. Moreover, Xiahou Wujiang's words were also secretly hinting to the others that the Great Light Temple would not dare to make a move against Chu Xiu. Similarly, their own people had died at the hands of Chu Xiu, but their Xiahou clan dared to go to the Guanzhong torture room to demand justice. Even if Xiahou Zhen was defeated by Guan Siyu in the end, at least their Xiahou clan dared to make a move and would not disappoint their own people. However, in contrast to the people from the Great Light Temple, they did not make a move. In this way, the Great Light Temple indeed appeared somewhat cold. Of course, no one would say that the Great Light Temple was too weak. The Kunlun Devil cult had been destroyed. In this world, no one could make the Great Light Temple retreat. However, the surrounding martial artists looked at Su Yan and the others somewhat differently. Their own disciples had been killed, and the enemy was right in front of them. Regardless of whether they could kill the other party, it was normal for them to at least show some expression. However, the Great Light Temple turned a blind eye to it. This group of monks was truly cold. Su Yan looked coldly at Xiahou Wujiang and said in a low voice, "How dare you?" Xiahou Wujiang smiled and said, "Master Su Yan is too serious. I was just speaking the truth. I have no intention of harming the Great Light Temple." At this time, Su Du, who had not spoken all this while, put away his lazy expression. His expression was frighteningly gloomy. An aura erupted from his body, pressing down on Xiahou Wujiang's body like a mountain. It immediately caused him to break out in a cold sweat, and he could not help but want to kneel down. However, Xiahou Wujiang was forcefully holding on at this time. If he were to kneel down in front of everyone, he would lose a lot of face. However, the coercion of a martial Dao Grandmaster was not so easy to resist. Xiahou Wujiang had unleashed all of his strength, but he still could not resist Xiudu's coercion. Even the bones all over his body were creaking. Just as Xiahou Wujiang was about to be unable to resist, a golden light enveloped his body, cancelling out Su Du's pressure. Xiahou Zhen appeared beside Xiahou Wujiang at some point. He cupped his hands at Su Du and Su Yan and said, "I have not taught my son well and have offended the two masters. Please forgive me." Su Du put away his pressure and snorted coldly. "Xiahou Zhen, it is not that you have not taught your son well. You have taught a good son. These little tricks are quite smooth, just like you when you were young. However, did you not teach him that playing these little tricks also depends on the person? This is the World Sword Sect Conference, and I am giving face to the 5 major sword sections. Otherwise, believe it or not, I will twist his head off." Being ridiculed by Su Du, Xiahou Zhen still had a smile on his face. Master Su Du is right. This kind of thing will not happen again. After saying that, Xiahou Zhen directly grabbed Xiahou Wujiang and left. The smile on his face also became extremely gloomy at that moment. Returning to the Xiahou clan side, Xiahou snorted coldly. You want to scheme against Chu Xiu? Fine, but who asked you to provoke the Great Light Temple? Are you looking for death? Xiahou Wujiang wiped the cold sweat off his head and said with a smile, Father, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I just provoked a little, not harming the Great Light Temple. Even if they are angry, what can they do? The Great Light Temple is far away in the northern Yen and has no direct relationship with the Xiahou clan. They cannot threaten the interests of the Xiahou clan. Moreover, this is the World Sword Sect Conference, and I am a junior. At most, the other party will just teach me a lesson. Using a lesson in exchange for the Great Light Temple finding trouble with Chu Xiu, this is a very good deal. In fact, Xiahou Wujiang had always been very clear in his heart. Since he dared to provoke the Great Light Temple, then he must have thought of the consequences beforehand. However, Xiahou sneered. Good deal? If you want to provoke, you also have to look at the target. Do you really think that Su Du saying that he would twist your head off was said in a moment of anger? If I wasn't here today, if you said anything more, Su Du would really dare to disregard the Xiahou clan's face and twist your head off. Chapter 387. Xiahou words made Xiahou Wujiang look stunned. It was a big taboo for a senior martial artist to attack a junior martial artist. Even when Xiahou went to the Guanzhong torture room to ask for Su Du, it was all under the excuse of seeking justice for seventh uncle. He did not believe that Su Du, the head of the Shaolin Temple's Kongji Zen Hall and a well-known martial Dao grandmaster, would openly attack a junior martial artist like him. Xiahou sneered, you juniors don't even understand the matters of the underworld. What kind of people don't exist in the underworld? Some people follow the rules, but some people don't. Su Du is the head of the Kongji Zen Hall, but do you know what his nickname was in the past? Monk Sanfeng. This guy was powerful and talented. Among the Su generation in the Shaolin Temple, in terms of talent, he was second only to the abbot Su Ci and the head of the Wangnian Zen Hall, Su Yun. However, this monk was an out-and-out lunatic. He had once gone crazy 3 times a day, and no one could stop him. He had even dared to point at the nose of the previous abbot and curse 18 generations of his ancestors. He had almost been expelled from the Temple of Great Light. After Su Ci took charge of the Great Light Temple, Su Du became much more well-behaved. Although he was the head of the Kongji Zen Hall, he did not care about the matters of the Kongji Zen Hall. With this guy's personality, do you think he was joking when he said he would break your head? He even dared to curse the previous abbot. What else would he not dare to do? Remember, you must not provoke this kind of madman. He is not an existence that can be measured with common sense. Xiahou Wujiang nodded, but he was also covered in cold sweat. It was better to be careful when playing tricks with a martial Dao grandmaster. Otherwise, it was easy to die without even knowing how. But Xiahou Wujiang did not regret it, because his words had worked. On the Great Light Temple's side, Xiahou Wujiang's provocation naturally could not be hidden from Su Du and Su Yan. The two of them did not care, but the other younger disciples of the Great Light Temple exploded. The Great Light Temple was the leader of the North Buddhist sect. As a Buddhist sect, although they were not too overbearing when dealing with other sects, they would not allow others to humiliate them. Just like what Xiahou Wujiang had said, allowing Chu Xiu to strut around in the arena was an insult to the Great Light Temple, and it also disappointed their disciples. Therefore, a martial artist in his 30s, who was from the Ming generation, ignored Su Yan's advice and walked into the ring, shouting, "Disciple of the Temple of Great Light, Ming Cheng, challenges the Guanzhong torture room's Chu Xiu." As soon as he said that, everyone present was stunned and turned to look at Chu Xiu and Ming Cheng. Although there was a challenge mechanism in the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference, a few rounds had already passed and no one had taken the initiative to challenge anyone. The World Sword Sect meets arena is not intense. Most of them are just sparring. Looking at the few people in the arena, it was obvious that Fang Qixiao had no intention to fight at all. He was just doing his job. Yan Fian was the same. Because she was a disciple of the Yunu Palace, she wanted to win a good ranking for the Yunu Palace. Nie Donglu even used the opportunity of the arena to buy people's hearts. The time he spent giving pointers to his opponents was longer than the time he spent fighting with them. As for Chu Xiu, the great battle between the righteous and demonic paths was about to begin. He was prepared to reap some benefits before it began, so he did not have any intention to fight. Therefore, things like challenging a specific person did not happen. The World Sword Sect meet was not a place to settle grudges. However, now that Mingqing had taken the initiative to challenge, this situation was broken. Everyone could see that Mingqing's aggressive manner was not a good one. Su Yan frowned and immediately wanted to stop him, but he was stopped by Su Du. Su Du said lazily, "That kid has already stood out. What's the use of stopping him? Fight, it's better to let them go. This bunch of kids are angry. If you don't let them fight, who knows, they might even secretly attack later." Su Yan frowned and said, "But what if something goes wrong? Chu Xiu is famous for being ruthless and decisive. Also, I promised senior brother Su Yun that I would not pursue this matter anymore." Su Du's expression turned serious, which was rare. He stared at Su Yan and said, "Junior brother, after being in charge of the Vajra institution for so many years, your Vajra temper has been worn away. Have you forgotten the rules of the pugilistic world? In the pugilistic world, either you are beaten to death by others, or you can only beat others to death. If you don't have the strength, then don't stand out. Can you protect them for a lifetime? Although you and I have shaved our tongues and become monks, the Great Light Temple itself is in the pugilistic world. Some rules will not change. If these junior martial artists want to fight, just let them go. Life and death are up to fate. At least your spirit is still there." Su Yan hesitated and said, "Then what about senior brother Su Yun?" Su Du instantly regained his lazy attitude and said calmly, "Go and explain. I don't want to deal with him." Looking at Su Du, Su Yan was speechless. However, he did not stop those disciples. There were martial arts masters from the 5 major sword sects around. Although he could not guarantee the absolute safety of the Great Light Temple's disciples, he could at least guarantee their lives. Since they wanted to go, then he would let them go. At that moment, on the arena, Han Tingyi frowned slightly. However, he did not say much. Instead, he asked Chu Xiu directly, "Do you accept the challenge from the Great Light Temple's Mingqing?" The arena of the World Sword Sect Conference was not that intense. Although one could challenge, the challenger had to accept it first. Chu Xiu looked at the Great Light Temple and Xiahou clan side, and a cold look flashed in his eyes. Because of Chu Xiu's previous fierce reputation, his opponents immediately surrendered when it was his turn. Chu Xiu could only stand on the arena and wait for the next round. He saw Xiahou Wujiang's actions when he came to look for the Great Light Temple. However, because he was too far away, he did not hear clearly what the other party said. However, when Xiahou Wujiang just left, someone from the Great Light Temple came to challenge him. Clearly, Xiahou Wujiang did not say anything nice. Thinking of this, Chu Xiu could not help but reveal waves of murderous intent in his eyes. Xiahou Wujiang was like a fly, always trying to find some trouble for him. Although it wasn't too big and couldn't threaten his life, it was still very annoying. Therefore, Chu Xiu already had a plan in mind. If there were no problems, even if he, Xiahou Wujiang, did not go on the arena, he would not be able to walk out of this floating jade mountain. Seeing that Chu Xiu did not speak, Han Tingyi coughed and added, "The World Sword Sect Conference is only for exchanging pointers. It's fine if you don't want to accept the challenge. Just wait for the next round." The 5 major sword sects only wanted to lure the demonic sects to attack this time. As for other matters, it was better to avoid trouble. It was best if Chu Xiu did not agree, otherwise, it would be troublesome if he caused any trouble. However, Chu Xiu grinned and said, "Since the Great Light Temple wants to fight, I naturally can't be a wet blanket, right? I accept." As soon as this was said, most of the warriors present immediately looked at Chu Xiu. The other matches were too boring. There was no sense of urgency of fighting in the arena. Now, there was finally something exciting. This also made the warriors present excited. Mingqing walked onto the arena with a cold expression. His aura gradually solidified, and a faint golden aura bloomed around him. The pressure was actually infinitely close to the unity of heaven and man realm. The disciples of the Great Light Temple had always been low-key. This was publicly acknowledged in the pugilistic world. Mingqing was a disciple of the Vajra institution. He was of the same generation as Mingchen, who died in the hands of Chu Xiu. However, he was younger than Mingchen, and his strength was also superior. Normally, a disciple of Mingqing's level could be nurtured as a future successor in other sections. However, in the Great Light Temple, Mingqing was not considered ordinary, but he could only be considered an ordinary elite disciple. There were not many disciples like this in the Great Light Temple, but they were not few either. The 3 major Zen halls and the 6 major martial institutions could find more than a dozen of them. Therefore, even though Mingqing could only be said to be a nobody in the pugilistic world and had not even been on the Longhu leaderboard, his strength was not inferior to the elites on the leaderboard. It was just that he was slightly older. Looking at the murderous Mingqing and the indifferent Chu Xiu, Han Tingyi shook his head helplessly and said, "Since both of you are willing, then make your move. However, let me reiterate that the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference is only used for sparring, not for you to kill each other and settle your grudges. You must remember this. Otherwise, if things get out of hand, it won't look good for anyone." Chu Xiu smiled and nodded. "Senior Han, don't worry. I'm familiar with the rules of the arena competition. Nothing will go wrong." When Chu Xiu said this, the martial artists from West Chu and Northern Yen did not feel anything. However, the martial artists from Eastern Qi, especially those who had participated in the God Weapon Conference, all had strange expressions on their faces. They did not forget that when Chu Xiu had participated in the God Weapon Conference in Eastern Qi, Cheng Tingfeng of the Hidden Sword Villa had intercepted him and prevented him from killing Shenbai. However, Chu Xiu had still dared to cripple Shenbai under the pressure of a martial arts master. His guts were not ordinary. Now, Chu Xiu said that he was familiar with the rules of the arena. Familiar with what? Familiar with how to kill someone under the nose of a martial arts master? However, Han Tingyi did not know about this. He was a martial arts master, so of course, he would not care about the messy matters between the younger martial artists. Hearing this, Han Tingyi only nodded and said, "If that's the case, then do it." With that, Mingqing was just about to point at Chu Xiu and say something when he saw Chu Xiu wave his hand and say, "Cut the crap. I originally thought that the Great Light Temple would keep its promise and let this matter go, but who would have thought that you monks would go back on your word? If that's the case, what else is there to say? I just hope that you won't regret it in the end." Chapter 388. Chu Xiu's words caused Mingqing to swallow back all the words he wanted to say. Actually, at this point, it was meaningless to say who was right and who was wrong. Chu Xiu's style was to kill whoever wanted to kill him. It was that simple and direct. As for Mingqing, his senior brother had been killed, but they were forced by the elders of the sect not to take revenge. This made him feel very aggrieved, and he could not help but want to make a move. Mingqing took back what he wanted to say. He only snorted and said, "My Great Light Temple does not go back on our words. It was my personal decision to challenge you in the arena. It has nothing to do with the Great Light Temple. Moreover, this is the World Sword Sect Conference. I just want to challenge you." "What, can't I?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, what's the use of saying so many useless excuses? Just make a move. You monks are too straightforward. Be more straightforward. The winner will stand, and the loser will scram. It's that simple. Mingcheng's eyes revealed a hint of anger and he snorted, "If you want to die, I'll grant your wish." As soon as he finished speaking, Mingcheng's body flashed with dazzling golden gang qi. As it rotated, it was as if Vajra had descended to the world, burning with raging flames as he punched at Chu Xiu. The Great Light Temple had countless precious Buddhist secret scriptures. Among them, the most famous secret scripture of the Vajra department was the Furious Vajra Heart Sutra. This body-tempering technique could be said to be top-notch, but its only disadvantage was that it affected a warrior's state of mind too much. This also caused most of the warriors from the Vajra department to be hot-tempered and impulsive. Of course, if one could suppress the anger in one's heart, it was equivalent to completely mastering the true meaning of the Furious Vajra Heart Sutra. It was just like the current Vajra department's first seat. He was not so impulsive, and his personality became very rational. Regardless of whether it was Ming Chen, who had died at the hands of Chu Xiu, or Ming Cheng, they had not reached this level, so they could not help but be rash and impulsive in their actions. However, this was not a big deal. In a real battle, the anger of the Heart Sutra of Furious Vajra would burn to the extreme, and its power would be extremely powerful. Just like now, Ming Cheng's punch shook the arena and made a series of explosions. Its power was comparable to that of a great master in the unity of heaven and man realm. Strictly speaking, Cheng was a martial art practitioner from the previous generation. It was just that he was relatively young, not even in his 40s. It was normal for him to be included in the younger generation of martial art practitioners. After all, the seniority in the Temple of Great Light had always been very messy. There were even martial art practitioners in the Su generation who were in their 20s. However, even though Ming Cheng was young, his cultivation was deep, and he was even stronger than Ming Chen of the past. As his fist descended, Buddhist light suppressed all evil and annihilated the devil. Its might was incomparably powerful. Chu Xiu's figure did not move. His hand formed the Great Vajra seal, and a similarly blinding Buddhist light exploded from his hand. It made Chu Xiu look like a Vajra that could subdue demons, and his might was incomparably powerful. Everyone present was stunned. Why did Chu Xiu's attainments in Buddhist technique seem to be stronger than Ming Cheng's? The Great Vajra seal collided with Ming Cheng's fist, and an ear-piercing sonic boom was heard. If it were not for the matrix that the sword hut had prepared for the arena, the two's attacks would have been enough to shatter the entire arena. After the loud sonic boom, Chu Xiu's figure did not move, but Ming Cheng could not help but take a step back. His eyes were filled with shock. In the Northern Buddha sect's Temple of Great Light, Ming Cheng was proud of his own strength. In the end, he discovered that Chu Xiu's strength was even greater than his. Chu Xiu's expression did not change. He still formed the Great Vajra seal in his hand and struck out once again. Out of all of Chu Xiu's techniques, the Great Vajra divine power was definitely not the strongest. However, for Chu Xiu at his current stage, it was the one that was the most helpful. The martial arts that Chu Xiu cultivated could be said to be extremely diverse. Before he had the Great Vajra divine power, Chu Xiu's vital qi and mental energy were not weak. The only thing he was lacking was the strength of his physical body. This was the effect of the wooden bucket. The amount of water a bucket could hold depended on its shortest piece of wood. When Chu Xiu successfully made up for his shortest piece of wood, Chu Xiu was truly invulnerable. There was not a single flaw that could be picked out in any area. Furthermore, when he was cultivating the Great Vajra divine power in seclusion, Chu Xiu had even refined half of the beast's heart. This caused Chu Xiu's strength to increase greatly. Even if he were to compete with the Great Light Temple's warriors in terms of strength, he still had the upper hand. When the second Great Vajra seal landed, Ming Cheng gritted his teeth. The Vajra shadow behind him bloomed, and a powerful Buddhist light condensed into a swastika seal to forcefully resist Chu Xiu's great Vajrawill seal. Another loud boom was heard, and Ming Cheng immediately took another step back. Chu Xiu seemed to only know the great Vajrawill seal. No matter what Ming Cheng's attack looked like, he would land a great Vajrawill seal and force Ming Cheng to take a step back. After 9 consecutive great Vajrawill seals landed, Ming Cheng was forced to the edge of the arena. This caused everyone present to watch anxiously, wondering if Chu Xiu could completely crush and defeat Ming Cheng. Han Tingyi, who was standing on the high platform, nodded. At this moment, he could also see that Chu Xiu's strength was truly worthy of his ranking on the Longhu list. Whether it was his own strength or his control of martial arts techniques, he had already reached the peak of the 5 Chi's origin realm. Even warriors at the unity of heaven and man realm were inferior to him in certain aspects. Basic strength, vital energy, and mental strength could be achieved through various external objects. Whether it was through seclusion, the guidance of a great teacher, or the consumption of various treasures, it was very easy to rapidly improve a warrior's realm. On the other hand, combat strength had to be improved through intense fighting, which was the most difficult aspect. Just when everyone, including Han Tingyi, thought that Chu Xiu would still use the great Vajrawill seal to blast Ming Cheng out of the arena, Chu Xiu's hand seal suddenly changed. This subtle change could not be noticed by others, but as a martial arts master, Han Tingyi immediately felt that something was wrong. However, it was already too late. The 5 rays of light in Chu Xiu's hand were connected from head to tail, rotating endlessly like the great sun wheel. It suddenly fell, and the power of the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other, bursting out an unparalleled power. Sun Will Seal. No one present expected that Chu Xiu would suddenly change his hand seal in the middle of the battle. Even his opponent, Ming Cheng, did not expect this. Ming Cheng had taken 9 of Chu Xiu's great Vajrawill seals in a row. He already had a subconscious understanding of the changes in the power of the great Vajrawill seal, so he only used the martial arts technique that he was good at to resist. He was also prepared to be blasted out of the arena by Chu Xiu's seal, so he did not prepare to use his killing move. However, who would have thought that this time, Chu Xiu did not play according to the rules. Under the Sun Will seal, Ming Cheng spat out a mouthful of blood, and his internal organs were shaken. He was directly blasted more than 30 meters away, smashed on the ground, and fainted. Everyone could see that under this attack, Ming Cheng would be seriously injured even if he did not die. Han Tingyi's expression changed, and he shouted angrily, "Chu Xiu! What are you doing? Didn't I tell you before that the arena of the World Sword Sect Conference is for you to exchange pointers, not for you to kill?" Chu Xiu shrugged innocently and said, "Senior Han, please understand. There are so many people watching here. I did not kill, and Ming Cheng is not dead yet. However, the martial artists of the Great Light Temple are very strong, so I could only use all my strength to attack. Swords have no eyes, fists and feet have no heart. Even if it is a careful sparring, isn't it normal to be injured or something? If there are restrictions, then there is no need to fight. Everyone can just sit down and talk." Han Tingyi snorted coldly. As a martial arts master, he naturally could not be calculative with a junior like Chu Xiu. Although everyone could see that Chu Xiu was quibbling, in terms of the rules, Chu Xiu really did not do anything wrong. Han Tingyi rubbed his head with a headache. It did not matter that Chu Xiu had seriously injured Ming Cheng, but the Great Light Temple was in an uproar. Seeing that Ming Cheng had been severely injured, the Great Light Temple side became even more agitated. That group of disciples were so angry that they seemed to have lost their minds. Immediately, another warrior jumped out and said coldly, "Great Light Temple's Vajra Courtyard's Ming Yi challenges Guanzhong Torture Hall's Chu Xiu." Han Tingyi frowned and said to Chu Xiu, "You have won a round. According to the rules, you can stop for a round to recuperate. Are you going to use it now?" Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "There is no need. I am not afraid of taking turns." Hearing Chu Xiu say that, Han Tingyi did not say anything else and directly let the two of them fight. Since there was a first round, there would be a second round. He would just let them fight. Ming Yi walked onto the arena. He was slightly older than Ming Cheng, but his attacks were also more fierce. After going onto the arena, Ming Yi did not say anything. He held a Buddhist commandment blade in his hand and slashed at Chu Xiu. His Buddhist commandment blade bloomed with Buddha's light, but the saber's momentum was extremely ruthless. Killing evil and beheading demons, merciful Buddhist commandment blade. With a merciful heart, the saber's murderous intent was limitless. Chu Xiu closed his eyes slightly and the heavenly demon dance was already in his hand. He raised the long saber and the devil's qi and evil blood qi intertwined and condensed, bringing about a wave of extremely evil power. As the saber slashed down, the saber's momentum of the three sabers of Avicii condensed into one, and its power was terrifying. The people from the Great Light Temple wanted to find Chu Xiu for revenge, but Chu Xiu was using them to hone his own strength. When he was in the Guanzhong torture room, Chu Xiu cultivated the great Vajra divine power and refined half of the fierce beast's heart. His own realm could be considered to have increased greatly, which also caused a slight fluctuation in Chu Xiu's foundation. Although it was only a trace, Chu Xiu still had to hone it to a perfect realm. In such a situation, most warriors usually had two methods. One was to continue training in seclusion until they could completely control this power. The other was to hone one's foundation through fighting and killing. Obviously, Chu Xiu chose the latter. Chapter 389. There were no weaklings among the warriors from the Great Light Temple. This was common knowledge in the martial arts world. To put it simply, the Great Light Temple should be a sect with a very low bottom line. As long as it was a warrior from the Great Light Temple, his abilities would not be too weak. The Li family's housekeeper that Chu Xiu had met in Wei County was a cook from the Great Light Temple. He was just a cook, but his abilities were considered outstanding among the rogue cultivators. As for the warriors who came to participate in the World Sword Conference, although they were not at the level of Wisdom King, Zhongxian, they were still the elite disciples of the Vajrayard. Otherwise, they would not have been brought by Su Yan to participate in the World Sword Conference. Opponents of this level were not weak. For Chu Xiu, they were good materials to train his own strength. At this moment, on the arena, Chu Xiu's Avicii demonic blade collided with Ming Yi's merciful breaking blade. A monstrous, turbulent demonic aura exploded and directly destroyed the Buddha's light blade. Moreover, this was not the end. Blood-colored astral energy erupted from Chu Xiu's heavenly demonic dance. The boundless killing intent brought about by the refined blood divine astral dance instantly enveloped Ming Yi. The saber aura enveloped him like a torrential downpour. After Ming Yi had slashed through the saber aura with great difficulty, a demonic saber that seemed to have been slashed out from hell, containing divinity, came crashing down. It directly shattered Ming Yi's saber, causing him to vomit blood as he was sent flying off the stage. Chu Xiu used the heavenly demon dance in his hand to point at the people from the Great Light Temple. He revealed a cold smile at the corner of his lips and said, "Next." As soon as he said this, everyone present was in an uproar. To provoke the Great Light Temple like this guy was simply too arrogant. The people from the Great Light Temple were even more in an uproar. A warrior did not even say his name and directly went up the arena to attack Chu Xiu. Everyone present shook their heads. They had seen arrogant people before, but they had never seen someone this arrogant. This Chu Xiu was practically offending the Great Light Temple to death. Could it be that the Guanzhong torture room was so arrogant now that it thought it was the Jianghu's torture chamber? However, they did not know that Chu Xiu dared to be so arrogant because he did not rely on Guan Siyu, but rather the entire fiend path behind him. Chu Xiu represented the Yin demon sect, or even the entire hidden demon sect. Not to mention Xiahou Zhen, Su Yan and the others, even if the abbot of the Great Brightness Temple, Su Ci, were to come, there would naturally be those big shots of the demonic Dao who would help Chu Xiu. At this moment, in the crowd below, Mr. Lu, who was disguised as the Pine Wave Sword Su Songtao, looked at the extremely arrogant Chu Xiu on the arena and transmitted his voice in a low voice. This kid is really arrogant. What is he planning to do? Using all the disciples of the Great Light Temple as a whetstone to train his own strength? However, Elder Wei, this kid is not like this usually. When he needs to be low-key, he will be low-key and ruthless. This time, he wants to show off in the arena. Beside Mr. Lu, a handsome young man in white with a jade-like face stood beside Mr. Lu with a folding fan in his hand. With a low and hoarse voice, he said, "This kid is smart. He is the new talent of the Hidden Demon sect. Now that our fiend path has gathered the entire floating jade mountain, it would not be a problem for him to be 100 times more arrogant." The handsome young man standing beside Mr. Lu was Jade-Face Heavenly Demon Wei Shuya. He had specially asked the people of the Phaseless Demon sect to help him disguise himself like this. In fact, this appearance was originally Wei Shuya's appearance when he was young. The 9 sky demons of the 5 sky demons were things that happened more than 200 years ago. Now, Wei Shuya was not afraid of being recognized. Although Wei Shuya previously said that his face was full of wrinkles and that he was no longer the Jade-Face Heavenly Demon, now that it was time to disguise himself, he took the initiative to ask the people of the Phaseless Demon sect to disguise himself to look young. His words did not match his heart. This almost made the martial artist of the Phaseless Demon sect laugh out loud. Of course, in the end, the martial artist held back. Otherwise, this Elder Wei's temper would not be so good. At this time, hearing Wei Shuya say this, Mr. Lu also heaved a sigh of relief. On the surface, Chu Xiu's identity was a rising star of the Demon Dao. However, he was also a person that he and Mei Qinglian had their eyes on at the same time. He represented the Yin Demon sect and their Phaseless Demon sect. In the future, if Chu Xiu became famous in the Hidden Demon sect, he would naturally be considered as their ally. Therefore, when Chu Xiu stepped onto the arena, Mr. Lu told Wei Shuya about Chu Xiu's identity in the underworld. This was to let this veteran of the Demon Dao recognize Chu Xiu as well and gain his favor. Wei Shuya was an experienced person, and he could see through Mr. Lu's thoughts at a glance. He could not help but smile and say, "Don't worry. I said before, this kid is very smart. Moreover, being arrogant is not a bad thing. As a wanderer in the underworld, he should be proud and impassioned. If a person is not arrogant when he is young, he has no future. However, if he is still arrogant when he is middle-aged, then he has no future. When I was young, I was much more arrogant than that kid. My Inma clan doesn't have to hide in the dark like a mouse and wear out our spirit. It's not bad to be like this kid." A hint of joy appeared in Mr. Lu's eyes. In the Demon Dao, there were not many people that Wei Shuya would say were not bad. It was not easy for Chu Xiu to get such an evaluation. Although this old man was not young anymore, he was still alone and did not even have a disciple or a servant. However, in the Hidden Devil clan, he was one of the 5 great sky demons of the 9th heaven mountain. This qualification was enough for him to be at the top of the devil path. Moreover, although the Demon Dao alliance created by the 5 sky demons of the 9 heavens mountain was killed, there were many survivors. Those who were able to survive that battle were all strong cultivators in the Demon Dao. Their development in the Demon Dao was not weak. Now that Wei Shuya had raised his arm and called for help, not all of the disciples of those people were willing to go through fire and water for Wei Shuya. At that moment, in the arena, Chu Xiu had already consecutively defeated several Great Light Temple's ancient martial art practitioners within a short period of time. Furthermore, it was a battle of attrition. It was a completely crushing aura, directly causing the Great Light Temple's ancient martial art practitioners to be terrified. Not a single one of them could withstand more than 10 moves from Chu Xiu. In the end, although there were still a few people from the Great Light Temple who had not entered the arena, they did not jump out to challenge anymore. Instead, they all lowered their heads and looked angry and humiliated. The remaining few people were weaker than the previous people. Their strongest senior brothers had been defeated. What else could they use to fight? Moreover, because it was a continuous battle, Chu Xiu seemed to have consumed a lot of his inner strength and vital qi. If they persisted, they might have a chance. However, they did not choose to make a move. The reason was simple. The ancient martial art practitioners from the Great Light Temple still cared about their reputation. Since they could not defeat Chu Xiu head-on, even if they could defeat him in a continuous battle, the people of the Jianghu would say that the Great Light Temple was bullying him with numbers. They did not want to do something so embarrassing. Therefore, they could only stand there and not dare to make a move. Looking at the disciples' sullen expressions, Su Du mocked them before Su Yan could say anything. "I say, you juniors are really something. Can't you take a blow? No matter what, Chu Xiu is 6th on the Longhu leaderboard. Do you really think that the leaderboard that Wind-Sweeping Tower created is a joke? If he could be defeated so easily by you, wouldn't the Great Light Temple be able to claim the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard?" Su Du pointed at Su Yan beside him and said, "If you are not convinced, there is still a chance. When you have cultivated to the level of your sect's first seat, you can go and seek revenge on Chu Xiu." Su Yan, who was beside him, nodded. It was not easy for Su Du to say something sensible this time. However, at that moment, Su Du added, "However, your sect's first seat's abilities are not that great. It will be quite difficult for him to seek revenge when he has cultivated to his level." Su Yan immediately glared at Su Du. However, Su Du turned his head to the side as if he did not see it. The Great Light Temple did not dare to make another move after being beaten up by Chu Xiu. Everyone present had seen Chu Xiu's might. Even those who had a grudge against Chu Xiu did not dare to show up at that moment. At that moment, on the other side, there were only 4 people left. They were Fang Qixiao, Chu Xiu, Nie Donglu, and Yan Fian. A duel was a very simple matter. However, 7th young Master Fang looked at Yan Fian opposite him. He shrugged his shoulders helplessly and said, "Miss Yan, why don't you just admit defeat? I don't hit women, especially when you are so beautiful and I am so handsome. If the two of us were to fight fiercely here, wouldn't it be a bit of a wet blanket? Why don't you admit defeat and I will treat you to a meal after this? The Yu Maiden Palace is far away in Wuxia, so you definitely have not tasted the delicacies of the Western region. When we come to the Western region, I will treat you to roasted lamb legs and lamb chops. Oh yes, there will also be good lamb kidneys. That is a great tonic. Last time, I went to a small tribe to rob. Ah no, I borrowed a few holy sheep that were fed with elixirs. TSK, the taste was not ordinary. Everyone present was speechless. This Fang Qixiao was really not an ordinary person. Treating Cloud Sword Fairy Yan Fian to eat lamb kidneys? Only Fang Qixiao could think of such a showy move. The warrior at the Unity of Heaven and Man realm from Sword King City covered his face in pain. He felt that Sword King City's face had been thrown away by Fang Qixiao. If it was not for Fang Qixiao's unparalleled talent in swordsmanship, he would have been hung on the city tower as a sacrifice several times by the people of Sword King City. On the opposite side, Yan Fian raised her delicate eyebrows. As an outstanding disciple of the 5 major sword sects, she understood Fang Qixiao. She knew that he was such a person, so she did not talk nonsense with Fang Qixiao. She raised the Yu Maiden sword in her hand and rushed forward. She knew that she was not a match for Fang Qixiao, but as a swordsman, she could not take the initiative to admit defeat. The Yu Maiden Palace would not allow her to do so. Chapter 390. Everyone had their own characteristics. Chu Xiu also discovered that Fang Qixiao's characteristic was not that he was talkative or amusing, but that he was narcissistic, extremely narcissistic. If one were to evaluate him sincerely, Fang Qixiao was definitely not ugly, but he was not handsome either. At least, he was not even close to being handsome. He was just an average person. Not to mention Lu Fengxian's appearance, Chu Xiu dared to confidently say that he was definitely much more handsome than Fang Qixiao. But Fang Qixiao himself did not think so. He really thought that his handsomeness could make everyone fall for him. But it was very clear that Yan Fian did not really buy Fang Qixiao's looks. The Yu Maiden sword in her hand was as ethereal as the clouds, and she continuously stabbed towards Fang Qixiao. She was beautiful, and her sword's momentum was even more graceful, so beautiful that it was murderous. Of course, Yan Fian also knew that the reason she could fully use her Yu Maiden sword technique to attack Fang Qixiao was completely because Fang Qixiao did not block or counterattack. Fang Qixiao's own swordsmanship cultivation could be said to be terrifying, and he was a realm higher than Yan Fian. If he really attacked, Yan Fian might not even be able to block 10 of Fang Qixiao's moves. And now, Fang Qixiao did not draw his sword. He was just casually dodging. While dodging, Fang Qixiao looked at Yan Fian and said helplessly, "Miss Yan, I said that I don't hit women. You can't beat me, so what's the point of continuing to fight?" Yan Fian frowned and said, "Fang Qixiao, are you insulting me? As a swordsman, if you don't draw your sword when you know you can't win, although it is rational, it is cowardice. Your swordsmanship cultivation is far above mine. Don't you even understand this?" Fang Qixiao muttered in a low voice, "Those who know they can't win are idiots." The Sword King City martial artist was about to go mad with anger. He shouted, "Fang Qixiao! If you don't act now, don't even think about leaving Sword King City for the next year." Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Fang Qixiao shook his head helplessly and said, "Boring, really boring." Although he said it was meaningless, Fang Qixiao's expression turned serious. The mischievous smile on Fang Qixiao's face disappeared completely. The sword that he had been carrying on his back was finally unsheathed. The people of Sword King City were very persistent with their swords. In order to reach the state of being one with the world, most of the disciples of Sword King City kept their swords in their hands even when they were eating or sleeping. They wanted to reach that extreme state of being one with the sword. However, Fang Qixiao was an exception. He carried his sword loosely on his back and wrapped it in a piece of linen. It seemed like he didn't care about it at all. In an instant, the boundless sword momentum absorbed all the surrounding qi of the heavens and the earth. It turned into a sword aura that was dozens of feet long and fell down. It affected half of the ring, and its power could be said to be astonishing. A martial artist at the unity of heaven and man realm could only draw and borrow some of the power of the heavens and the earth. However, Fang Qixiao was using his own sword momentum to draw and move the heavens and the earth. The power created was already second only to that of a martial arts grandmaster. The boundless and huge sword aura suddenly smashed down. Yan Fian's figure was pushed back. However, that huge sword aura turned into a sweeping momentum and sealed off all the paths around her, leaving her with nowhere to retreat. The slender Yu Maiden sword in Yan Fian's hand suddenly exploded with a boundless sharp sword aura. As her sword momentum flowed, it turned into a sword aura storm. Under Fang Qixiao's huge sword aura, she bitterly resisted. Her figure retreated step by step. Finally, after she retreated to the edge of the ring, she was finally able to cancel out this sword attack from Fang Qixiao. However, before Yan Fian could heave a sigh of relief, Fang Qixiao once again struck out with his sword. It was a very simple sword attack. The long sword was raised horizontally and stabbed out. It was the same posture that all martial artists learned when they first learned the sword. It was simple and direct. However, it was such a simple stab that seemed to transcend the boundaries of space and time. Under the trajectory of that sword momentum, all the power was sucked out. The distance between Fang Qixiao and Yan Fian was rapidly shrinking. However, Yan Fian did not move. Instead, her eyes revealed a deep sense of shock. When Fang Qishao stabbed out with his sword, he did not slash a person, nor did he slash heaven and earth, but karma. From the moment the sword stabbed out, stabbing Yan Fian was the effect, and the process of the sword was the cause. There must be an effect before there could be a cause. This completely illogical way of the sword was comprehended by Fang Qishao. No matter what Yan Fian did to resist, she would still lose. Just when Fang Qishao's sword was less than 10 feet away from her, Yan Fian took a step back and fell off the ring. With a disappointed expression, she said, "I've lost." At the last moment, Yan Fian still retreated because there was no difference between retreating and not retreating. She was destined to be unable to withstand this sword attack. 3 moves. Fang Qishao only used 3 moves to defeat Yan Fian. They were both in the top 10 of the Dragon and Tiger roll, but the gap was so big that it was shocking. Everyone present was also silent. The feeling that Fang Qishao gave people was really too divisive, and they could not react at all. Previously, Fang Qishao always gave people a feeling of being silly and unreliable. He did not have the slightest aura of a young powerhouse. This also made most people feel that he did not live up to his name. But now that Fang Qishao became serious and really attacked, everyone finally knew how terrifying Fang Qishao was. At the same time, they could not help but think, if Fang Qishao was so terrifying, then how terrifying were Zhang Qingzhen and Zhong Xian, who were ranked first and second on the Dragon and Tiger roll? Could it be that they were comparable to martial Dao grandmasters? After defeating Yan Fian in 3 moves, Fang Qishao put away the long sword in his hand and returned to his mischievous appearance. He said with a smile, "Miss Yan, I told you to take the initiative to admit defeat. That way, everyone can save energy. But don't worry, I, Fang Qishao, am a man of my word. Just now, I said that I would treat you to a meal, so I will definitely treat you to a meal. When do you have time? Let's meet in the western regions." Yan Fian took a deep look at Fang Qishao and did not say a word. She turned and left directly. Looking at Yan Fian's back, Fang Qishao rubbed his chin and muttered, "What does this mean? Did she agree or reject? TSK, women are really difficult to understand. They are even more difficult to understand than Sword Dao." At this moment, on the high platform of floating Jade Mountain, the martial Dao Grandmaster from Sword King's city, whose entire body was shrouded in a white robe, said to the others in a proud tone, "Everyone, what do you think of my Sword King city's disciples? Nowadays, the Buddhist sects and Daoist sects dominate the world. In my Sword Dao lineage, only Sword King city's Fang Qishao can stand shoulder to shoulder with the young disciples of the Buddhist sects and Daoist sects." The beautiful woman from the Yunu Palace had an ugly expression. After all, it was someone from the Yunu Palace who had lost. Although she also knew that this matter could not be blamed on Yan Fian. It was not that Yan Fian was weak, but that Fang Qishao was too freakishly strong. A loss was a loss. She could not find any excuses. The villa master of Hidden Sword Villa, Cheng Tingshan, could not help but ridicule, "He was just lucky. It's your Sword King city's luck to have a Sword Dao genius like Fang Qishao. He wasn't nurtured by your Sword King city." The martial Dao Grandmaster from Sword King city stood with his hands behind his back and said indifferently, "That may be the case, but can you protect Fang Qishao if I give him to your Hidden Sword Villa? Only my Sword King city can accommodate Fang Qishao." When he said that, the martial Dao Grandmaster from Sword King city carried a hint of arrogance. In fact, the Sword King city did have a reason to be arrogant. With Fang Qishao's personality and mouth, it could be said that he had offended everyone along the way. Chapter 391. Fang Qishao had defeated Yan Fian of the Yunu Palace in 3 moves. This was no longer a one-sided suppression, but a battle between 2 people of different levels. Mr. Lu of the Phaseless Demon sect had a serious look in his eyes. There were crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the righteous sects, and they were indeed stronger than the diabolism. Mr. Lu himself had already reached the realm of half-step Grandmaster. As long as he was given an opportunity, he was confident that he could immediately step into the realm of martial arts Grandmaster. However, if Mr. Lu were to fight with Fang Qixiao now, he was not confident that he could defeat Fang Qixiao. On the other hand, on the side of the diabolism, Chu Xiu of the Yinma clan was not bad, but Chu Xiu was only at the realm of 5 Qis collecting in origin, and had not reached the realm of oneness of heaven and man. Mr. Lu did not know if Chu Xiu could defeat Fang Qixiao. There was also Yi Tianxia of the Bright Demon clan. He had refined the inner elixir of the Blood Flood Dragon and successfully cultivated the Heart Sutra of the Blood Flood Dragon as a human. He was not easy to deal with, but he had not reached the realm of oneness of heaven and man. The martial artists of diabolism were on the wane. People like Chu Xiu and Yi Tianxia were already considered to be at the top. However, when looking at the righteous sects, especially the Taoist and Buddhist sects, both Zhang Qingzhen and Zhong Xian were outstanding figures that were hard to come by in 1,000 years. Compared to them, the disadvantage of diabolism was really not small. At this time, Wei Shuya, who was standing next to Mr. Lu, seemed to have sensed his thoughts. He transmitted his voice, "Lu Jin, don't be so pessimistic. No orthodoxy can always be strong. The general trend of the world has its ups and downs. Because of the rise of the Kunlun devil cult, our diabolism has been glorious for hundreds of years. Although we are now at a low point, who dares to say that we will always be at a low point? As long as the diabolism is not destroyed, there will always be a chance for us to rise again. Since ancient times, the only orthodoxies that could truly stand at the pinnacle were Taoism, Buddhism, and Devil. Now, this bunch of swordsmen want to stir up trouble when they see that our Devil Tao is on the decline. They are still far from it. Mr. Lu nodded. Perhaps it was precisely because there were countless people like Wei Shuya in the diabolism that they could continue to survive in this environment where the diabolism was suppressed to the extreme. In the past, Prince Anil had once asked Mr. Lu, "The Kunlun devil cult has been destroyed for hundreds of years. What's the point of persisting in these things?" At that time, Mr. Lu did not answer. Perhaps to Mr. Lu and the current Phaseless Demon sect, their loyalty was not to the Kunlun devil cult, but to the flourishing age of the devil path. Just like now, Nye Donglu had asked Chu Xiu to rest on the surface, but under the current situation, could Chu Xiu really rest? Fang Qixiao had already smoothly dealt with Yan Fian. Only Chu Xiu was left to fight with Nye Donglu again. There were so many warriors on floating Jade Mountain watching, and there were also martial arts masters from various sects waiting at the side. Could a junior warrior like Chu Xiu really go to the side to rest and recover his vital qi before making a move? There were so many people watching him. Chu Xiu, recover his strength alone? Even if Chu Xiu was thick-skinned enough to ignore the gazes of these people and recover his vital qi, people would still label Chu Xiu as a timid and cautious person. Although it wasn't a derogatory term, it was still not something good. If Chu Xiu couldn't take the provocation and made a move now, it would be in line with Nye Donglio's intentions. He was a hypocrite, but he was also a real villain. Han Ba first taught him that the easiest way to solve problems was to solve them with one's own fists. His father, Nye Renlong, also taught him that the winner takes all. As long as you can defeat your enemy, using any means is reasonable. Nye Donglu didn't have the confidence to win against Chu Xiu at his peak, but now that he was facing Chu Xiu, who had expended a lot of energy, Nye Donglu still had some confidence. In any case, no matter what Chu Xiu chose, Nye Donglu would be the one to benefit. Looking at Nye Donglu, Chu Xiu said lightly, "Nye Donglu, you're still the same. Although you've become Han Ba's disciple, you haven't learned his domineering ways." Nye Donglu smiled and said, "Domineering ways? I don't need that kind of thing for now. My master walks the path of dominance, and I walk the path of the king. Can't I? Chu Xiu laughed coldly when he heard that. Nie Donglu, you really are full of yourself. Walk the path of the king? You're just a young master of the memorial hall. Do you still think you're a northern Yen prince? Nie Donglio's words were indeed arrogant. The memorial hall's strength wasn't considered the top among the people and the 6 gangs, yet he still dared to say he wanted to walk the path of the king? Do the nobles and generals have guts? Nie Donglu stood with his hands behind his back and said lightly, Chu Xiu, you were born in the wilderness, and now you don't even have the courage to do so? Chu Xiu raised the sky demon dance in his hand and pointed it at Nie Donglu. He said in a deep voice, that's not bad. However, between the two of us, you are the one who looks more like a king. Don't you think that's a little inauspicious? Nie Renlong was a standard peasant, but Nie Donglu wasn't. The young master of the memorial hall was not a peasant, no matter where he was. Of course, Chu Xiu couldn't be bothered to waste time with Nie Donglu. Since Nie Donglu believed in his so-called way of the king, then Chu Xiu would teach him a lesson. Chapter 392. Although Nie Donglu had a great reputation in the Jianghu, he had not really fought many times. He had always been famous for his scheming, which was why he was ranked in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard. Now, after years of painstaking cultivation and becoming Han Baxian's disciple, everyone finally saw Nie Donglio's true strength. Heaven and earth above the clouds, grasping the world. The powerful palm power rippled out layer by layer, tearing apart the demonic aura on Chu Xiu's heavenly demon dance and attacking Chu Xiu along the blade. Chu Xiu raised his eyebrows. Nie Donglio's accumulated strength was not weak, and the gathering loyalty manner's secret heaven and earth above the clouds hand was really strange. It grasped the universe, and any gang chi power that was caught by the heaven and earth above the clouds hand would be torn apart by the strange ripples. However, in terms of pure strength, Chu Xiu had never been afraid of anyone. The boundless demonic aura on the heavenly demon dance combined with the demonic aura, and Chu Xiu's eyes also turned red in an instant. In an instant, Chu Xiu had already stepped into the state of selflessness. Demonic aura shot up to the sky, and demonic flames swept out. The long blade broke free from Nie Donglio's grasp, and with a surging momentum, it slashed at Nie Donglu. The boundless demonic aura combined with the demonic aura condensed into a hideous shadow of a demon god around Chu Xiu. As Chu Xiu's blade slashed down, it let out a shrill wail of evil spirits. Nie Donglio's figure retreated quickly, and his expression changed slightly. The reason why he had the confidence to fight Chu Xiu was because Chu Xiu had previously gone through the Temple of Great Light's continuous battles against several 5 Chi's origin realm experts who were not weak. He had already expended a large portion of his inner energy. But who would have thought that Chu Xiu would still be able to unleash such a level of power? Just how deep was Chu Xiu's accumulation? Nie Donglio's hands danced in succession. The heaven and earth cloud-reaching hands, which had originally seemed fierce and imposing, now became profound and soft. Yin and Yang, the two extremes of Yin and Yang, the heaven and earth, the two completely different powers fluctuated between Nie Donglio's hands, dividing and cancelling out Chu Xiu's violent saber force. However, at this moment, the killing intent in Chu Xiu's eyes receded and a mysterious aura appeared around him. The trajectory of Nie Donglio's heaven and earth cloud hand was within Chu Xiu's grasp. Heaven's sun gazing at air. In the past, Chu Xiu could not use the heaven's sun gazing at air in such an intense fight. But recently, although Chu Xiu's cultivation of the heaven's sun gazing at air had not improved, he had become much more familiar with it. Just like now, he could concentrate his mental strength to the extreme in battle and use the heaven's sun gazing at air. The heaven and earth cloud hand, a secret technique passed down in honor manner, was very strange. It could be both hard and soft. Just like just now, it could shatter Chu Xiu's blade power head-on. Now, it could split heaven and earth and block Chu Xiu's evil blood blade power. However, in the eyes of Chu Xiu's heaven sun gazing at air, Nie Donglio's next attack trajectory was already clear to him. Chu Xiu's blade power slowed down, but it was no longer continuous like a violent storm. Instead, he stared at the trajectory of Nie Donglio's attack. The moment Nie Donglio's heaven and earth cloud hand was about to be used, he blocked his opponent's attack trajectory and completely disrupted his rhythm. After more than 10 strikes, Nie Donglio's heaven and earth cloud hand's trajectory had been completely disrupted by Chu Xiu. This made him so frustrated that he almost vomited blood. Every move of his actually seemed to be taking the initiative to collide with Chu Xiu's saber intent. He was completely unable to execute the heaven and earth cloud-reaching hands formation. This kind of situation was simply strange to the extreme. It was just like how his father had fed him moves when they were sparring in battle. If one didn't cultivate the heaven and earth cloud-reaching hand to the extreme, it was simply impossible to do this. However, Nie Donglu was certain that the Nie family's heaven and earth cloud hand would never be leaked. Tribute Village's heaven and earth cloud hand was created by Nie Renlong based on some ancient techniques he had obtained in the past. In the entire Tribute Village, only he and his father Nie Renlong knew of it, so there was absolutely no possibility of the secret being leaked. Nie Donglu did not know what was going on with Chu Xiu. However, seeing that Chu Xiu's blade power was getting stronger and stronger, and the blade power was getting fiercer and fiercer, constantly approaching him, Nie Donglu snorted. His body suddenly exploded with a blinding golden light, as if the sun had descended upon him. He punched out, illuminating the world. The Northern Yen martial arts tycoon Han Baxian practiced the vast Yang 9 Extremes mysterious skill, which could be considered a half-self-created martial art. In the past, Han Baxian first practiced the body-refining skill that he had exchanged with the Northern Yen imperial court. However, Han Baxian later became obsessed with martial arts and combined the 9 body-refining skills that he had obtained from various places. After they were combined, it became the vast Yang 9 Extremes mysterious skill. The vast Yang 9 Extremes mysterious skill was ferocious and domineering. It was not only a body-refining skill, but also a mysterious skill that accumulated a lot of inner strength. Moreover, Han Baxian had also integrated his own martial arts moves into it, making it even more powerful when used together. Previously, Han Baxian used weapons. He was from the Northern Yen military, so he naturally used heavy weapons. He had used guns, halberd, and even the green dragon crescent blade. However, Han Baxian later discovered that no weapon was as practical as his pair of iron fists. He gave up on weapons and used his fists to fight his enemies. However, he also integrated his use of weapons into the vast Yang 9 Extremes mysterious skill, just like the punch that Nie Donglu threw. The light of the vast Yang sun shrouded him, but in reality, it was a heavy hammer. It was heavy and powerful, with infinite power. The dazzling light collided with Chu Xiu's blade. The light of the vast Yang scorching sun burst out in an instant, eventually tangling with the devil qi and dissipating. Violent gang qi burst out, and even the ring shook twice. That was not all. Nie Donglio's figure did not stop at all. He stood straight and threw a punch. It was like a straight spear, bursting forth with unparalleled momentum. Its speed was extremely fast, and it was also extremely ferocious. Seeing Nie Donglio's actions, Chu Xiu's lips curled into a cold smile. Did Nie Donglu want to fight in close combat with him? Unfortunately, ever since Chu Xiu cultivated the great Vajra divine powers, he no longer had any weaknesses. Even in close combat, Chu Xiu's accumulated inner force and the physical strength brought by the great Vajra divine powers were no weaker than Nie Donglu, who cultivated the vast Yang 9 Extremes mysterious skill. He sheathed his blade and formed a seal. Among the complicated hand seals, majestic gang qi spread out. The wisdom fist seal, useless in heaven and earth. The area within a radius of more than 30 meters became Chu Xiu's Gang Qi domain. Nie Donglio's punch crashed into the Gang Qi domain, like a spear piercing into sticky water, its momentum waning again and again. The spear focused on momentum, and after piercing out, it moved forward with indomitable will. However, under Chu Xiu's wisdom fist seal, this momentum had already dissipated, and its power was reduced by half. Stepping forward, Chu Xiu formed a complete Aquarius seal in his hand. In an instant, a dazzling light burst out and collided with Nie Donglio's punch, instantly forcing him to take a step back. Stepping forward again, Chu Xiu formed a Sun Will seal in his hand. The 5 elements rotated into one, growing and multiplying endlessly. A powerful Gang Qi burst out, forcing Nie Donglu to take another step back. Chu Xiu's body was surrounded by golden Buddhist light. One after another, Buddhist mudras landed. Their power was incomparably ferocious. They were actually suppressing Nie Donglu. The power was several times stronger than when Nie Donglu had unleashed the vast Yang 9 Extreme's mysterious skill. Everyone present had a strange look on their faces. Nie Donglu was looking for trouble. After all, Chu Xiu had fought several times in the Jianghu, and everyone knew a little about his martial arts. When it came to power, there were few warriors of the same level who could compare with Chu Xiu. Of course, Nie Donglu could only blame his bad luck. He had finally become Han Baxian's disciple and raised his cultivation to the extreme. He did not expect to meet such a monster like Chu Xiu. Even after fighting several battles, he could still burst out with power of this level. Some of the monks from the Great Light Temple below also had ugly expressions, because that was how Chu Xiu had treated them previously. He had unleashed a barrage of attacks without any reason, completely crushing them in terms of power. He had completely overwhelmed them and finally blasted them off the arena. However, Nie Donglu was obviously not one of those monks from the Great Light Temple. After being suppressed by Chu Xiu for several moves, Nie Donglio's eyes revealed a cold look. He had underestimated Chu Xiu this time. After not seeing him for so long, his luck was not bad, but Chu Xiu's growth was even more terrifying. If this continued, he was afraid that before he could exhaust Chu Xiu to death, he would be crushed and defeated by Chu Xiu in public. It was not that Nie Donglu could not accept failure. In fact, he had lost many times in his life. Previously, he lost to a woman, and he was even ridiculed by the warriors of the Northern Yen for a long time. But now, in the World Sword Sect Conference, under the watchful eyes of everyone, if he was crushed and defeated by Chu Xiu like this, it would be a huge blow to Nie Donglio's reputation. So at this moment, Nie Donglu had already made up his mind to fight. Victory or defeat was right in front of him. Although he was full of schemes, he would not hesitate after calculating. Instead, he was extremely decisive. Since he had decided to fight, he no longer worried about being injured or holding back. Before Chu Xiu's fist landed, a blood mist rose around Nie Donglio's body. He had actually burned his blood essence, which made everyone's eyebrows twitch. Burning blood essence, a method that hurt others and oneself, was usually only used when it came to a life-or-death situation. Now that Nie Donglu had even used this method in the ring, it was obvious that he was really angry and had been forced to the extreme. Han Ting, who was the referee on the high platform, wanted to intervene when he saw this scene. However, he resisted the urge. Anyway, it was already the last 2 rounds. If they wanted to fight, then let them fight. Anyway, it did not affect the overall situation. The goal of the 5 major sword sects was diabolism, not to be a mediator between these junior warriors. Even after the consecutive battles, Chu Xiu's accumulation was even more profound than his. So, if they continued fighting like this, it would not be Chu Xiu who would be exhausted to death, but Nie Donglu himself. So, Nie Donglu could only change his strategy. He attacked with all his strength and unleashed his greatest power to defeat Chu Xiu. Looking at Nie Donglu, who was like a god descending to the world, Chu Xiu's eyes turned red. The Dugu seal had been shattered. Although the power of the two blood swords had been mostly neutralized, there was still a portion of the power that had seeped into Chu Xiu's internal organs, causing his meridians to feel some pain. But at this moment, Chu Xiu had already stepped into the selfless killing realm. Killing intent and baleful aura condensed around him, and things like pain were directly ignored by Chu Xiu. There was only a single word in his mind: kill. As he punched out, the murderous aura around Chu Xiu condensed into a crimson color. It was so red that it shone brightly and was a dazzling red. Forgetting heaven, forgetting earth, forgetting heaven, forgetting killing fist. The punch, condensed to the extreme, collided with Nie Donglu. When the two fists collided, a terrifying wave erupted. The faces of the other cultivators turned pale as well. It was not because of the aura that erupted when the two of them exchanged blows, but because of the terrifying killing intent from Chu Xiu's annihilating heaven and earth extinguishing oblivion killing fist. The forgetting heaven, forgetting killing fist was very famous in the Jianghu. It was not just one or two people who practiced it. Many warriors in the Eastern Qi military had actually practiced this martial art. However, those people were all powerful warriors in the military. It was easy for them to condense this level of killing intent in battle and then use this martial art. But Chu Xiu was different. He was just a Jianghu man, and he came from a Jianghu background. Only God knew how he could condense this level of killing intent. If Chu Xiu had not represented the Guanzhong torture room, he would not have felt the slightest bit out of place if someone called him a devil. At that moment, in the arena, Nie Dongliu's punch, which could be said to be the pinnacle of power, was blocked by Chu Xiu. This made Nie Donglu gnash his teeth in hatred. Whether or not Chu Xiu's strength was exhausted aside, Nie Donglu himself had expended a lot of energy. Despite going all out, Nie Donglu was unable to shake Chu Xiu, and this was only because he had taken advantage of Chu Xiu's perilous state. Even after Chu Xiu had been taken on in succession, he was still powerless. This made Nie Donglu feel helpless. He finally understood what his master, Han Baxian, meant. In the face of absolute power, everything else was nothing. Even though he was full of schemes, he still lost in the end. Nie Donglu was not a sore loser. In fact, he was very rational. After feeling that he could not beat Chu Xiu even if he used his last trump card, Nie Donglu immediately prepared to retreat. Unfortunately, Chu Xiu did not want to give him this chance. The moment Nie Donglu retreated, Chu Xiu moved as well. However, Chu Xiu did not move. He formed a seal with his hands, and as his fingers tapped, there was an explosion of thunder. Outer Lion Seal. It was like the roar of thunder. Nie Donglu was not prepared at all, and his earth energy dissipated by Chu Xiu's Outer Lion Seal. Blood flowed from his ears. However, the Outer Lion Seal had a limited effect on Nie Donglu. After all, his physical cultivation was still there. After cultivating the vast Yang 9 Extreme's mysterious skill, his physical strength still had a certain degree of defense against martial arts like the Outer Lion Seal. But before Nie Donglu could react, Chu Xiu's eyes had already turned into a bottomless abyss, pulling Nie Dongliu's entire mind into it. Extinguishing sky, destroying earth, soul-shifting technique. Secret mental techniques were definitely a minority type in the Jianghu, and those that were related to them were all described as evil and ruthless. Chu Xiu's martial arts had always been firm, fierce, and imposing. Now, he had suddenly used a mental secret technique. Not only did Nie Donglu not react, but everyone present also did not react in time. Originally, with Nie Dongliu's physical cultivation and strong qi and blood, he still had a certain degree of resistance against secret mental techniques. However, he had used a secret technique to burn his blood essence, causing his blood essence to be depleted. Now, he was hit in an instant. His mind fell into a bottomless abyss. Nie Donglu struggled with all his might, and his mental strength was almost stretched to the limit. However, just as he broke free from the influence of the soul-shifting skill, what greeted him was a punch from Chu Xiu. It was the annihilating heaven and earth destroying oblivion killing fist with infinite murderous intent. Han Tingyi frowned. They could really fight in the ring, but they could not allow anyone to die. So, he was already prepared to stop them. However, Nie Donglu still had the strength to fight. At the critical moment, he directly exploded all his Gang Qi, condensing it into a shield in front of him. The golden Gang Qi shield was directly shattered by Chu Xiu's punch, and Nie Donglu was also blasted off the ring by Chu Xiu's punch. He spat out large mouthfuls of blood, but his life was clearly not in danger. Seeing this, Han Tingyi did not continue to attack. Looking at Chu Xiu, who was panting a little but not too injured in the ring, Nie Donglu's heart was filled with unwillingness, but he still wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and returned to his seat. He was not someone who could not afford to lose. Therefore, Han Tingyi just asked a routine question, Chu Xiu, do you still want to fight? Just when everyone thought that Chu Xiu would definitely take the initiative to admit defeat, Chu Xiu suddenly said, of course I want to fight. Why wouldn't I? I don't have the habit of admitting defeat. Fang Qishao, who was standing at the side, said helplessly, Brother Chu, you still want to fight when you are already in this state? Don't tell me that you and that woman from the Yu Palace are also. Pfft. Like a fairy, why are you talking about the dignity of a swordsman? Besides, you are using a saber, not a sword. Chapter 394. Fang Qishao's words made all the saber-wielding martial artists very unhappy. A swordsman needed dignity, but a saber-wielder did not. However, as the matter stood, what Fang Qishao said did make some sense. Now, not to mention that Chu Xiu had overexerted himself, even if Chu Xiu recovered to his peak, he would still not be able to defeat Fang Qishao. Since that was the case, what was the point of continuing to pester him? Looking at Fang Qishao, Chu Xiu said indifferently, dignity is something that you fight for yourself, not something that you can just talk about. The only reason I want to fight again is because I'm not used to admitting defeat. Seeing that Chu Xiu was so insistent, Fang Qishao shrugged and said indifferently, as long as you're happy. Although he was too lazy to make a move, Fang Qishao felt that it would not take long to finish off Chu Xiu. Based on Chu Xiu's current state, he might be able to finish off Chu Xiu in less than 3 moves. However, although Fang Qishao was a little unreliable, he was still a kind person. Before he made a move, he specially asked, do you need to recover your strength? Chu Xiu shook his head and said, no need, this is enough. Fang Qishao shrugged and said, all right, I won't stand on ceremony then. As he said that, Fang Qishao's hand was already on his sword. At the same time, Fang Qishao's seemingly mischievous expression turned serious. Fang Qishao was a very split person. His usual state and the state he was in when he held his sword were two different people. Fang Qishao had seen the power of Chu Xiu's attack just now. He had to admit that Chu Xiu was indeed not weak, but that was all. There was a big realm difference between them, and Chu Xiu could not beat him. However, even if Fang Qishao was confident that he could defeat Chu Xiu, even if Chu Xiu had consumed most of his strength, Fang Qishao still had to show his serious attitude when facing an opponent like Chu Xiu. If Fang Qishao was not serious, he would probably lose face in front of Chu Xiu. The seemingly ordinary sword in Fang Qishao's hand was unsheathed and stabbed out. The karma rotated. His person, his sword, and Chu Xiu seemed to have a strange connection. It was extremely magical. As soon as the fight started, Fang Qishao used the strongest karma swordsmanship that he could master. He also planned to end the battle with Chu Xiu quickly and then go back to rest. This move was not a sword technique, but had risen to the level of swordsmanship. Therefore, except for martial Dao masters, the people below could not understand it. Although they also felt that Fang Qixiao was somewhat mysterious, it was obvious to them that the current Fang Qixiao was not as powerful as when he fought with Yan Fian, where the sword aura spanned more than 30 meters and swept away everything. At this time, in the face of Fang Qixiao's sword, Chu Xiu's eyes revealed a faint excitement. Although Chu Xiu knew that he was no match for Fang Qixiao, he insisted on fighting Fang Qixiao. He did it for the sake of Fang Qixiao's sword. Chu Xiu's mental strength rose to the extreme, and even his eyes became extremely empty. If one looked closely, one could even see the sun, moon, and stars rotating in Chu Xiu's eyes. The heaven's sun gazing at air skill was performed to the extreme by Chu Xiu. Ordinary people only saw the sword that Fang Qixiao stabbed out casually, but what Chu Xiu saw was the powerful karma power. Fang Qixiao's swordsmanship had an effect first, and then there would be a cause. This was a sword that was almost certain to hit its target. Other than forcefully resisting it, no one could break it. Even the grandmasters of swordsmanship in the past had never heard of such a strange swordsmanship. Only God knew how Fang Qixiao had comprehended it. However, Chu Xiu's heaven's sun gazing at air skill was the opposite of Fang Qixiao's swordsmanship. What he saw was the cause, and what he affected was the effect. Even if it was a sword that was certain to hit its target, Chu Xiu could see the trajectory of the sword, and then he could predict whether to dodge or counterattack. It could be said that what Chu Xiu saw with the heaven's sun gazing at air skill was the future, and it could be considered a type of karma. Therefore, when Fang Qixiao stabbed out with his sword, Chu Xiu suddenly took a step in a direction. It was this step that made Fang Qixiao's body stop abruptly, and a look of horror appeared in his eyes. His karma had been disrupted. He could not stab Chu Xiu with this sword. Ever since Fang Qixiao had successfully comprehended the karma sword principle, even the grandmasters of swordsmanship in Sword King City had been full of praise for him. If they were in his shoes, they would not know how to break it apart from forcefully resisting it. Now, Fang Qixiao did not know whether his karma sword principle had been broken by Chu Xiu or not. In any case, it had been disrupted. If he forcefully attacked again, it would be considered a real failure. Fang Qixiao had a rare look of seriousness on his face. He had thought that he would be able to deal with Chu Xiu with a single sword strike, but he had not expected to encounter such a strange thing. The long sword in his hand changed its trajectory, and the karma changed. On the other side, Chu Xiu also took a step forward and changed his karma again. The two of them changed their trajectories back and forth. In the eyes of everyone present, Fang Qixiao and Chu Xiu seemed to be fooling around. One person's sword momentum was slow, and he would stop midway, while the other person was simply walking around in the arena. However, they did not know that Chu Xiu and Fang Qixiao's mental strength had been stretched to the extreme. The change in karma was a competition of their understanding of their own martial path and the strength of their mental strength. Chu Xiu had insisted on attacking Fang Qixiao for this scene. From the moment Fang Qixiao had used the karma sword principle to defeat Yan Fian, Chu Xiu had already had a plan. His heaven's sun gazing at air skill was extremely difficult to cultivate, and he could not even make progress in closed-door training. He could only hone it through killing. However, even so, the progress of the heaven's sun gazing at air skill was very slow. That was until Chu Xiu saw Fang Qixiao's karma sword principle, which was actually somewhat similar to the heaven's sun gazing at air skill. They were both related to karma, so Chu Xiu wanted to use Fang Qixiao's karma sword principle to hone his own power. As it turned out, Chu Xiu was right. Every time Fang Qixiao changed the trajectory of his sword, Chu Xiu had to exert all his mental strength to perform the heaven's sun gazing at air skill. Under such pressure, although his mental strength was stretched to the extreme, the cultivation of the heaven's sun gazing at air skill improved visibly under the pressure. At this moment, the other martial Dao masters present revealed a hint of shock in their eyes. They had long known that Fang Qixiao was talented, so they were not surprised that Fang Qixiao displayed such a cultivation level. Now that Chu Xiu was also good at martial arts related to karma, he could even fight Fang Qixiao to such a stalemate. Although they knew that the current Chu Xiu was definitely not Fang Qixiao's match, it was clear that Chu Xiu had the potential to catch up to Fang Qixiao's level. On the high platform, Cheng Tingshan from the Hidden Sword Villa said sourly, "Guanzhong torture room is really lucky. There are almost many talents in the past few generations. First, there was Chu Kuang Song that shook the Jianghu, and then there was Guan Siyu who turned the tide. This generation has Chu Xiu. This Guanzhong torture hall is really lucky." Among the 5 major sword sects, only the Hidden Sword Villa and the Yunu Palace had weak potential. The Yunu Palace was weak because they only accepted female disciples, and the Jianghu was dominated by men. Therefore, it could be said that the Yunu Palace excluded 80% of the Jianghu people. Moreover, the Yunu Swordplay Codex itself was also an unstable factor. As for the Hidden Sword Villa, the reason was even simpler. Although there were outsiders in the Hidden Sword Villa, the Cheng clan had always been in charge of the villa. It was almost like an aristocratic family. As a result, the Hidden Sword Villa's secret techniques, as well as some of their treasured swords, could only be used by the Cheng family. Even if outsiders were powerful, the Cheng family would not be at ease to hand over the techniques and weapons to them. The Sword King City's martial Dao master suppressed his surprise and said indifferently, "So what if he's lucky? Potential doesn't equal strength." Fang Qixiao won this round, and Fang Qixiao will continue to win in the future. Although Chu Xiu has potential, he can't threaten Fang Qixiao of Sword King City. Cheng Tingshan sneered and did not say anything. Although he did not like Sword King City, he would not say anything under such circumstances. After all, Fang Qixiao was a member of the 5 major sword sects, while Chu Xiu was a member of Guanzhong torture room. Even if the 5 major sword sects had conflicts with each other, they still had to unite against outsiders. At this time, Fang Qixiao had changed his sword 9 times in a row, but he did not manage to stab all 9 times before Chu Xiu's heaven sun gazing at air saw through him. In the end, Fang Qixiao had no choice but to withdraw his sword. At this time, Chu Xiu's mental energy was almost at its limit. When he saw that Fang Qixiao still wanted to change his sword stance, Chu Xiu said directly, "There's no need to fight. I admit defeat." Everyone present was stunned. That's it? The two of them took a few steps forward inexplicably, and Chu Xiu admitted defeat without even making a move. "Didn't you say that you're not used to admitting defeat? Why do you say it so skillfully now?" But no matter what, the warriors below the stage were all dumbfounded, completely unable to make heads or tails of what was going on. Fang Qixiao put the long sword in his hand back on his back and glared at Chu Xiu fiercely. "So you're using me as your whetstone? I even wanted to treat you to a meal. Now, you should be the one treating me." Although Fang Qixiao was a little unruly, he was not an idiot. On the contrary, Fang Qixiao was very smart. When they were fighting just now, he was focused on the sword principle, so he did not notice it. It was only when Chu Xiu admitted defeat while sweating profusely that Fang Qixiao realized that although he had won this round, he had been tricked by Chu Xiu and helped him hone his martial arts. Winning or losing didn't matter to Chu Xiu from the beginning. Therefore, he was ungrateful and insisted on fighting with Fang Qixiao. He wanted to use Fang Qixiao to hone his heaven sun gazing at air cultivation. Hearing this, Chu Xiu smiled and said, "It's not a problem to have a meal together, but I'm guessing that your seniors in Sword King City don't want us to be together. Moreover, it's also a problem if you can come out after returning to Sword King City. That fellow who I don't know if he's your senior brother or martial uncle will definitely report you." You're tuning in to the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.